You should take a leaf out of. You should take a leaf out of Jem's book sometimes, Veach. Come on.
I don't think I think you misunderstand him if you think that's his point. He's saying that's incorrect to do.
How are Spaceballs made?
What's a spaceball?
You know, like planets and shit.
They accrete through gravity.
Well, call them planets then. Don't call them Spaceballs.
Well, aren't they balls in space? So wouldn't a
That's
spaceball
the accretion process. You can look it up, but there's an accretion process that happens because of gravity.
Because of gravity. And what does dark matter? What is dark
evidence
matter?
Right, look, if we're wrong about dark matter, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're wrong about gravity, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we're wrong about the shape of the Earth. You know, we go ahead. Go ahead.
Nobody is proposing that the theory of gravity is wrong. They are proposing that there's something else called dark matter affecting it. The theory of gravity is perfectly sound as it is.
Well, I mean, no, it has problems. It has problems, but its problems are well known. It's one of the cutting areas. Hold on. It's one of the cutting areas of science. It's people are working on it constantly, and they may change it. But yeah, I mean, what we know about it, still works, but it does also have some weirdnesses that we don't have figured out yet.
Right? To the Earth and gravity, though, Scott, we're pretty cool, though, aren't we?
Yeah.
In a local sense, we understand gravity pretty well.
Yeah, on the mid scale, it seems to be flawless.
Yeah.
Except for that whole 120 zeros.
In the mid scale, I said. The mid scale, by definition, not the 120 zeros.
Yeah, you're right.
I think we work from a position as an organism. We're working from a position of having no knowledge of reality to having accumulated knowledge about reality, right? That's, this is what sets us aside from other organisms, that we have this ability to record and pass information on from generation to generation. And I think that you want to sort of, it's a natural consequence of this process that we're always going to be at a stage where there's some stuff that we haven't got a full understanding of. And what you want to do, Hank, it seems to me, is work your way back from that point and say, well, here's some stuff we haven't got a full understanding of. Therefore, this other stuff that we thought we had a full understanding of, we don't have that, and then we don't have this other stuff that we thought we had a full understanding of. And I just don't think that's true. I think that we have to be in a position where there's stuff we don't have a full understanding of. And that doesn't mean that all the stuff we think we do have a full understanding of, we now don't. It could mean we're wrong about some things, but it doesn't mean that it's all wrong. And we should assume it.
I agree. That doesn't automatically mean that it's all wrong. But if I'm pressing this issue of dark matter, right, and then someone comes up with a better theory and then replaces dark matter, let's say dark gravity just happens to be a better theory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a theory that I think the layman can understand. So maybe it's a better theory. Like, hey, there's this problem with galaxies to where the gravity equation doesn't work. So we have this theory of dark gravity as a placeholder to where this is, like you said, the cutting edge of science, even though there's no independent variable testing. But anyway, no hypothesis testing. But yeah, it's the part that we don't know, right? I think that would be a better approach because that
is what happens, though.
Hold on. What happened since the flat earth thing sprung up is fake news, right? Everything's deemed fake news. So instead of just jumping on the fake news bandwagon and coming up with a theory like dark matter, how about dark gravity and just be honest and say, we don't know how this works.
That is what they do, Hank.
Is it?
Yes, that's exactly what they do.
So is dark gravity the prevailing theory right now?
Well, it's called entropic gravity. If you're referring to what I think you're referring to.
Yeah, I've heard you call it that before.
Yeah, entropic gravity is the thing, and that's a possible replacement for gravity. Maybe we'll see, but they're very clear about dark matter being a placeholder. Dark matter very much exists as a way of sort of backwards reasoning from gravity, because gravity's been so robust for so long. There's this idea that something like this might be true, but by no means are they saying, okay, fake news, let's just tell everybody this is true. They're very clear and upfront about what we know and don't know about this. Everything that you know about it not being real, it came from them.
It's the result of an observation.
Yeah.
Of how
An
things
observation
fall.
that didn't include any problems with the formation of planets and the solar system. An observation that didn't include the formation of suns and black holes and
Well,
high density sun. An observation that only referred to a aspect of the structure of a galaxy.
It's a
Rotational
theory.
Yeah.
It's a theory of how things fall. The iron core, magnetic core of the Earth has not been established. What people call planets, we don't even know if they are planets anymore. We've got lights and luminaries in the sky.
How would
And
you
rocks,
accept the
apparently.
establishment of the core of the Earth? Well,
What's that?
how would you accept the establishment of the iron core of the Earth?
Do you even know it's there?
The liquid and solid. I'm just asking. That wasn't the question I asked you. I said, how would you establish it? What would you accept as evidence for it?
Well, that's my next question. Do you even know it's there?
Yeah.
He's
And,
asking you.
and that's not answering the question I asked you. That's pivoting away from it.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. I don't believe the
asking
Earth's a
you.
planet.
Was there anything that would convince you? Is there a piece of evidence that you would say, "Oh, that's good enough"?
I
do you
don't
not know?
believe the Earth's a planet. Sorry.
I know. So he wants to know what
Prove me
evidence.
wrong.
Is there any
Prove
evidence
me
that would be
wrong.
good enough? Is there any evidence that would be good enough? What's the evidence look like that you imagine would convince you?
What? I don't know. I don't believe the Earth's a planet, so prove me wrong.
I know.
So-
we're asking you what evidence would
What's your
convince you.
criteria of evidence? Is what we're saying, Mel. What is acceptable evidence to you? So, I can say we've demonstrated the density of the Earth using seismic surveying.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Is that acceptable to you?
That seismic surveying exists.
And that we use
Yeah.
it and we get information from it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Still
So
doesn't prove
seismic
the Earth's a
surveying
planet.
is where we get the evidence of the density of the various layers of the Earth as it moves towards the core. The reflection properties of those seismic waves show that we live on a globe.
No.
Okay, so you accept it, but now you don't accept it because it argues with your narrative.
Where's your iron core? What's it consist of? How hot is it? What's in there? Where are the
I'm merely
samples?
talking about seismic surveying and the information we've got from it.
So where are the
Mel,
samples?
the iron core consists of iron.
Where's the iron?
Isn't it an inference though? In the end,
Without samples of it.
Aha! So now we
It's
need
theory.
to go down to the iron core and we need to grab a bit of it and bring it back to the surface, so you can go, yeah, it's iron. That's your acceptable criteria. Now
That's
we're getting
fair.
somewhere.
That's fair, right? Because it might not be iron, right?
I again, I'm happy with your assertion it might not be iron, but what we understand is the density of it and the shape that those seismic waves are telling us the Earth is.
So how would you know it's iron then in the center?
What we can say is we know the density of it, and the density equates to iron.
So
We know
how
the
did
transmission- we
you
know the
establish
transmission
what the
properties of it from seismic surveying, and it is consistent with the properties of molten iron.
So what, they smelted molten iron and then what, got some spectroscopy or some interferometer and
In a
bounced a
lab.
radar wave?
Yep, in a lab.
Did they fuck? Have you got a citation for that?
Properties of molten iron, yes.
I'd love to see the citation for that if
Okay,
anyone
so
has
now,
that.
Mel, you're saying that seismic surveying doesn't work and you don't get good evidence from it. That's
No,
now
I'm
your
not
claim.
saying that. I'm saying
So
where
you
is
accept
where
that
is this?
So do you accept that seismic surveying works?
I don't know if it works.
Good point. That's a good place to start. I would say you should start investigating that to see if that evidence is convincing.
One thing I do know though is no one's been to the center of the Earth and they're guessing about what's in the center of it, if there even is a center.
To know about them.
Yeah, I don't need to go and touch a bust, be able to examine a bus and say that's a bus. I don't need to
No.
physically touch it.
When was the center of the Earth even established?
Oh, not sure exactly.
How far is the center of the Earth from the surface of the ground?
Half the diameter of it.
So you don't know.
You tell us, Mel. You tell us.
I know no one knows. In here, anyway.
6,378.14 kilometers mean radius.
How did you establish
Half the
that?
diameter, by the way, half
We
the
measured it.
diameter would not be the same as I don't know.
How'd you establish that? Just because an answer's been given, how was that answer
We
arrived
measured
at? You didn't, so who measured it?
We measured it. The human
Not
race
you.
has measured it.
Not you, Dross, so you
I'm
can't
part of
claim
the
it.
human race, so I claim part of that credit.
No, you cannot claim it.
Merle, I measured you doing Aristosthenes and taking sightings to Polaris. And space, picture from space do a pretty good job of measuring it too.
So you ain't got shit, and no one's been there.
No,
Yeah, we
I've
ain't
done
got
those
shit
first.
apart from we've
I've
got
done
evidence
all.
as well.
Well,
I've done all three.
you do not have to go traveling from the surface to the core with a measuring tape to measure the radius. For fuck's sake.
So
How else
if
do you directly
I
measure it?
said,
Well,
exactly.
number one, we know the circumference of the Earth because we've measured it.
With what?
Well, number one, we have a whole navigation system, don't we? We have coordinates,
Is that
which
directly
you
measuring?
people, flat earthers, use all the time when they drive their cars.
Well, your point is
So
as
because I
ridiculous as
have a
saying we
coordinates,
don't know
right,
the
which is the
diameter of a
direction.
basketball because we can't
Hold on, bro.
see the
Can I-
middle.
What's inside a basketball?
Okay,
Shut
but
up,
with
Mo.
a basketball,
I've never
you can
opened a
measure it
basketball, so I
directly in
wouldn't
front of you.
Exactly. You know how you
I
find
measure
it out.
That's exactly
You
what
know how
we
you
did.
find it out. You can cut it. You can cut it, and you can have a look inside it, and you can establish exactly what's in
I
the
can
center of
tap
it.
it and I could see if it was hollow or not from the sound because I can tap something just using the sound and I can say that's a solid object. Oh, donk, donk. Oh, that's hollow.
I've got a question. If
So
next
how
time
did
I
you
get a
guys
broken
measure it
arm, I'm going to get the doctor to cut it open because I won't believe the X-rays that they'll take.
Yeah.
So how did you get the radius
There's a
of the
huge
Earth
difference
again?
between the
We
photoelectric
measured it.
effect and
With what?
assuming that you know the
Right
radius.
or pictures
of
of
the Earth.
space, or any number of ways.
Aristosthenes,
What way?
sightings to Polaris, pictures from space. I've done those personally, those three. So that's why I cite those three things. Okay.
So you had
did
a shadow.
Aristosthenes? You did Aristosthenes for real?
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
we all did.
Like you yourself?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I
we
did
all
it on my table with 3 beer cans.
Oh, it doesn't work there. You're not.
Yeah,
you're
I
not
proved
parallel
that my
light.
table. No,
No,
seriously, I
you
proved
don't
my
have parallel
table was a
light.
sphere.
You fucked it up.
Dude, you know how much a
fucked it up.
spherical table
how close
costs?
is the light source?
You fucked it up, Hank. You
Do you
They
know how much
can't
a
answer
spherical
either,
table
guys.
on parallel light.
Do you know how much a
They're
spherical
just saying
table
words.
costs?
You really
I'm really
do it that way, Mount Hank. It doesn't work when you do it like that.
People do it with the
Why not?
real world. That's
You
what
need
you want to
parallel
measure.
You need effectively parallel light rays. You use the light
They
rays of
don't
diverging.
know.
That's exactly how it works.
I know they
If the
don't know.
light rays are diverging, of course it's going to make it, give you that result.
So
So
if,
that
if I said to you, do you have gold in your pocket, and you had gold in your pocket, would you say to me, yes, I have gold in my pocket, or just show me the gold?
I could say either, but what I could do,
Here
I
are
just,
both
want, I just want to pivot back very quickly to the point. What I could do to find that gold originally, and this is something that's used in mining on a fucking daily basis, I can use my seismic surveying to say, hey, it's really likely we're going to find gold deposits there because the strata, the rock, and the density patterns look really good. There's a high probability we're going to find gold here.
But if you had the gold, wouldn't you just show me the gold?
We're
We're
on
going to come find the gold. now.
No? You'd talk
You're
about it,
asking
would you?
here. How could I show it?
You'd talk about it, right?
Well, again,
Yeah.
we talked
Yeah.
about it now, Mo, which is the seismic surveying. Now we're going to go and dig for it. We're going to go into the pocket, and
Right.
there's a good chance we'll find that gold. Now, we won't do it every time, but, certainly, 60, 70, 80% of the time we're going to be on point.
So,
And that's the problem that I've got with what you're trying to deny. You're trying to say, oh, this method is shit, it doesn't work,
no, I'm not.
or I don't
not-
know how it works, yet it's something
I'm
that
not
we use
denying-
for mining
I'm not denying.
regularly, and
I'm
we
not-
find stuff.
All right, have you finished?
Yeah.
I'm not denying anything. I'm saying we, and I'm including you guys too, because I'm generous. don't know what's in the center of the Earth. Prove me wrong.
We don't know for absolute certainty, but we have some good ideas based on indirect measurements.
Ideas is what
Yes.
you have, right?
Yeah, based on indirect
Confidence.
measurements.
Do you have any substance?
Yes, we have confidence.
Seismological waves, and just studying the magnetic fields, we're able to figure
A
out
bit like
that's likely
dark
to be
energy, right?
certain things. And so we can't guarantee that with absolute certainty, but we have high confidence.
Okay,
Which
so
is
you
pretty much
can't
the best we
guarantee it.
get out of
Hang on,
science.
and then I'll be quiet. So you can't guarantee it with absolute certainty,
Yes.
but you're going to
But
sit there
200
like it's certain.
No,
No,
that's
that
exactly
brings it back.
no one ever tells you these things are certain absolutely. In fact, we tell you over and over nothing is absolutely certain.
Isn't the Earth a
You
globe?
are so
Scott,
weird.
that brings it
Sorry,
back to
is
the
the
same
Earth-
analogy.
So if there's
That's what I
water
said.
in a... Listen, if I have a glass of water and there's water in the glass, I can't know for certain that there's water in my glass.
Not for
Sorry,
absolute
Veach.
certainty.
Veach, is the
We
Earth
get
a
very
globe?
high confidence.
That brings it back to that analogy I said. How do you know you've got a broken arm with an X-ray, unless you're going to cut your arm open to prove that it's broken, or go by the science of the X-ray?
Maybe you're high as fuck, Merle, and you're hallucinating. Maybe you went schizophrenic, or
Maybe,
there's
maybe,
light
maybe,
look like
Maybe
maybe.
it's a glass of
yeah,
petrol.
all that stuff
and
is
not water.
possible.
What if it's a glass of water, though, and I know it's a glass of water, and I
Well,
drink
How
it,
would you
and
know
then
that? That's
it's
the
a
point.
glass of
Maybe it's
water?
actual light.
What
Maybe
then?
it's just-
Do
What
I
if
know
it's a glass
now?
of, what if it's a glass of vodka and it's your 10th glass of vodka?
Yeah.
Well,
mean,
that's that. They're
Now you
different.
think it- and you
Very
think
high
it's
confidence. You get a very high confidence bet. That's
And then you go,
center
you're
of
like,
the Earth.
oh shit,
can't
that's not
guarantee it.
water. See, Jim is bringing the rational logic.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
not
like
saying the same
answer.
thing as Scott is. You could be.
I know he just doesn't listen.
There's a way that you could be, delusional in some sense. I don't mean that in a rude way.
I
but
know.
In your hypothetical,
Yeah.
you cannot know for certain. You could be having a dream, or you know what I mean. You could have been knocked down by a car and be in a coma somewhere.
Your confidence is very high, and for good reason. We recognize that. Like you certainly can have very high confidence, but that's also true for science things. We can have very high confidence, even though we can't guarantee you that it's true.
And it's on a sort of a casual level, it's okay to say you know that to be true, and you're absolutely certain of it. I think.
Yeah, on a casual level, for sure.
I wouldn't take that plunge. I wouldn't put my life on it or money.
What about the water? What about the water? What about the water?
No, I'm just saying, like,
you take that
I just
on less
wouldn't
evidence, Mel.
make a claim like that unless I knew 100% for sure it was true.
But you keep saying the Earth's not a globe. That's a claim that you have made multiple times. But you
I
don't
know,
Earth is a
I
globe.
know it's not a planet.
Prove it.
So prove me wrong.
Prove it.
Hey, guys, quickly, back to the broken arm thing. Can you measure the length and the dimensions of the arm without cutting it open?
Sure.
Well, then maybe we should start there.
With the X-rays.
Yeah, but you can do it from the surface of the arm, right?
Well, you wouldn't
find
do
the
that
right-
when you're doing triage. You'd accept the results of the X-rays because that's been a proven useful tool that we have very high confidence in, and it's much better to get that bone set than to actually say, oh, let's measure it, let's see if it's a little bit shorter. Oh, it flops about a bit, that's a good sign, while the guy's screaming in the fucking chair with a broken arm. You get me?
I think you missed the point I'm making, man.
Well, no,
I'm talking about an arm. I'm talking about the Earth.
Yeah, but what you missed is that we're talking about the center of the Earth. Can we know which
Yeah,
core of the Earth?
yeah. My analogy was to do the center of the Earth is to do with the seismic.
Yeah, I get that and all, but can't you measure? Can't you find the radius by measuring the ground first?
Of course.
Oh yeah.
So how do you find the radius?
Once we get a circumference, we can have a radius. If we recognise that it's not a perfect sphere, which we've done, we can work out the correct centre of it. You know, stuff like that. So yeah, no, I don't have a problem.
You can take a radius from a circumference if you assume it's a ball.
Well, it's always the fact we get into the square root of fuck all problems, isn't it? You know, well, it's not perfect, it's not absolute, it's not this. Well, no, very little in life is that satisfying. What we have is we have the best argument to go forward with and what has the best evidence for. And what the best argument, what we have the best evidence for is it looks like the Earth has a liquid iron and a solid iron core, and that's what's generating our magnetic field, that rotation. Now that's an explanation that works and it conveys all physics. A flat stationary Earth, why the fuck has it got a magnetic field?
Correlation is not causation.
No, but it's a really good indicator of causation, especially when it's congruent from multiple points of
Why does
observation.
the flat Earth have a
That gives us
magnetic
very
field?
high confidence. And you can go back to Maxwell Clark
Monologuing.
and the unification of
Monologuing.
the electromagnetic.
So you guys said some things. I've been listening. You said that there really is no settled science. Well, in that case, then the Earth's not for certain a globe, right?
Yes, the Earth
Maybe
is
it could
not
be
for
flat.
certain. We just have high confidence in it.
Right. And why would there be a magnetic field on a flat Earth? Maybe it's just like every other magnetic field, it's part of the ether. The ether is all the magnetic fields. And if the inverse square law is true and light does travel forever, just not at the same potency, then
The only problem with the flat Earth magnetic field
in
is
the
its
middle of
magnets
the
are not monopole.
in the middle of the sentence.
I know, guys, let him finish, please.
Yeah, so all the magnetic fields in the universe are inundating your body. They're in the living room with you, right? Because unless you live in a lead coffin, or you've made a Faraday cage of your house, or you wear like tinfoil hats, then you have the entire ether around you.
So ether and magnetic fields have nothing to do with the non-existing ether.
Faraday cages don't exclude negative fields.
So we're gonna move away from something that we've got good evidence for, good correlation for.
We don't have evidence for magnetic fields?
And we're going to move away from that.
No evidence for magnetic fields then.
You know what he was saying.
What was he saying? Because I was talking about the magnetic fields of the universe.
I'd suggest Veach
We have a
mute,
theory of
guys,
magnetic
'cause-
fields that doesn't involve a non-existent ether.
Okay, well, my theory, I just explained to you, the ether is the magnetic field. So for you to say that it's non-existent, you're not listening, or you maybe not understanding. Maybe you don't understand. Is that possible? Because I can
we can
explain
just
it
replace
better.
ether with magnetic field, though, can't we?
You're wrong.
Is that what you're saying? That magnetism is just another name for the ether?
Well, I'm saying that the magnetic fields of my Wi-Fi router, right, is in your living room right now.
Whoa. Your
You just can't
Wi-Fi
decipher
does
the
not
signal.
work on magnetic fields, Hank.
So you're saying there's no electromagnetic pulses coming from my Wi-Fi router?
Whoa, you said electromagnetic. One sentence you said magnetic field, and another sentence you said Wi-Fi, and another sentence you said electromagnetic.
Yeah, there's lots of different ethers.
Magnetic fields are not the same as electromagnetic waves.
I didn't say that they were. I'm saying
Yes,
there's
you
different
did.
kinds.
Yes, you did.
I didn't say they were the same.
Yes, you did.
All right, let him respond, Bazar. What
Yeah.
did you say then, Hank?
Okay, what I'm saying is that there's all these different fields out there. There's light from the stars, light from the planets, light from the sun, light from the moon. Then there's the ones that we've created, like radio stations, Wi-Fi routers. And I know that that's different, right? Different spectrum, different frequency, right? All these things are, different. They're not all on the same channel, right? But all this wireless technology we got, plus the natural stuff coming from the universe, it's all inundating us because light does travel forever, just not at the same potency. So due to the inverse square law, it gets, less and less potent as it go further away from the source, but it doesn't ever actually go to zero, does it?
Correct. Yeah.
Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so
where's the magnetism in all of this?
Well, the magnetic fields of the Earth.
So light and radio are electromagnetic waves. They are not magnetic fields.
I know.
And they are not, none of them use the ether to get from A to B.
They don't use the ether. They are part of the ether.
No, they are not. There is no ether.
Can you prove that?
There
Can you
is
cite
no
a source?
ether. Michael Smalley proved that there was no ether.
Okay, you just
Well,
made
what
the
do you
claim.
have to say that's true, Hank? Because you've made the claim there that they are part of the ether. So
It's my theory.
okay, but do you have any reason to believe the theory? Do we have any reason?
Because they're
to believe it?
detectable. Everybody can detect all the different frequencies and magnetic fields and the Earth's magnetism and the magnetic fields coming from the sun and the ones coming from Jupiter and
But they
all
can't
of that.
detect ether, can they? And you're saying it's
No,
all.
The only problem is that I'm using the word ether. Everything else is established.
Hank suggests that there is an ether. You're saying two or three things, and then you're saying, and that explains a fourth thing. It's nonsense.
That's kind of like things fall down when you drop them, therefore gravity's real, right?
Well, again,
Yeah.
all you're doing is you're assigning the label ether to what we call magnetism. We're assigning the label gravity to the observation that things fall and accelerate at 9.8 meters per second squared minus drag.
Right, so I can't do that, but you guys can? Is that what
No,
he's saying?
you can. I don't have a problem with it. If you want to call it that, I just now, whenever you say ether, I'm assuming you're saying magnetic field.
And other types of fields, right?
Oh, I don't know about that because you've only defined that.
Right, I said there's multiple types of ether.
You can
And
do
then-
it, Hank. I'm just asking you what reason you have to believe it to be true.
Well, because it's obviously there.
You said you had a theory. A theory would have been backed up with proven hypothesis. Go through the process of the hypothesis.
I didn't say it was a scientific theory.
Well, why not? I mean, if we're talking about reality, that implies scientific theories.
So I've named a bunch of stuff that radiates. I've classified it as ether, right? And you want me to science that?
Yeah.
What
No, it's not a scientific
in
theory.
your world, Hank?
You think that's
in that case,
See,
then
you
it
guys
has-
are too
it has
strict with
no-
your scientific
has
method.
no
See, you can just ask a question. So here's me doing science right now, guys, right? Because in this server, it's ask a question. What if electromagnetism was the ether? And then post a picture of that little raptor, like scratching its chin, like wondering.
I don't think anybody said that doing science was just asking a question. I think.
Wait,
that's a
isn't that your
total
scientific
flop.
method?
No.
Why are you
Well, let me Google it. Hold on. I could be wrong. Right?
He's talking about Feynman's speech where, we ask a question we don't know the answer of. We don't know is kind of where we start from. It sounds silly, but that's the beginning of the scientific
No, it
method.
doesn't sound silly.
Richard
That's exactly
Feynman.
right. That's exactly correct. But that's true for anything. It's so broad. I mean, everybody does it.
It was kind of a comical sentence, Hank, in Feynman's
It's not even
lecture.
comical.
Oh no, it was serious, but it was still he was trying to be entertaining in it.
His response to their laughter just was he was genuinely confused by their laughter because it isn't funny. It's true.
All right,
You've
here's
watched I like that. We're both watching
the six steps of the scientific method by Anne-Marie Helmenstein, PhD, biomedical science, bachelor in physics, mathematics, and okay, so she knows what she's talking about. The first one, number one, is purpose / ask a question. So, what if ether is the electromagnetic fields?
Okay, that's fair. You can ask that.
Okay, research.
Go on.
Conduct background research. Write down your source. You can cite references in the modern era. Yeah, we should probably not look for references in the past, right? That'd be bad.
Sure, of course you could. You can look at references anywhere. But do a bunch of research. Okay, what's next?
Form a hypothesis.
Okay.
Propose a hypothesis. This is
Cool.
sort of an educated guess.
Well, the hypothesis would be your point where you can falsify your proposition in the question that you're asking. So that's what the hypothesis is for. It's for the ability to be able to falsify it. So that's why you need to state what your hypothesis is, because that's then what you're going to test against to falsify.
And this is required for it to be a scientific
No.
theory, right?
It's not required.
No? Then why would I want to waste my time with it? I'll just
good
declare it a
practice in
scientific theory.
observational science.
Because it's a guideline for how to lead you towards doing something that's going to be rigorous. But you don't. There's ways. It's like the exceptions form the rules, or like when you're really good at something, you can improvise. It's like you don't have to follow it strictly like some sort of third grader. But yes, that's a good guideline to start with. If you don't feel comfortable, follow those guidelines. the only real key thing in order to
Wait a minute.
be
Now
sort
it's
of,
talking about dependent and independent variable. You guys said earlier that really
it
doesn't
will
matter.
also talk about observation. Read carefully.
I don't see anything about observation.
The key thing about a hypothesis is that you want to be able to test it in some way. Often that will take the form of an experiment, but not always. Sometimes it will take the form of observation.
And in there, does it say that you can only apply that to things that are not man-made and concrete in the universe? No, it says you can apply it to fucking anything that we make, that's physical, that we can test, measure, examine.
Okay, so let's say you got a torsion balance, and the balls are getting closer, right? So what does that prove?
You mean
Well,
what is
that's
Cavendish
based on the
proof?
hypothesis, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
the
the
Cavendish
hypothesis
experiment,
is
so-
if mass attracts mass and we take away the vertical downward force by putting it on the torsion balance, that's what we're doing, we're removing the downward force effectively. Then if our hypothesis will be if mass attracts mass, then those balls will move closer together without any other interference.
I don't think that's what he was
And
trying
that's
to do
what
at
we
all.
observe.
I think he was trying to find out the density of the Earth?
By discovering the gravity.
Big G.
Yeah.
So he was trying to figure out the density of the Earth by discovering Big G.
Yes.
Because the balls got closer.
Yeah, because it's called specific gravity.
Specific gravity.
Yes. Hey, why do you say everything that we say back like serious to you? Specific gravity.
It's all new to him. It's the first time he's heard this stuff. Clearly,
It's another tactic, isn't it? It's a sort of
It's
light
also not
ridicule.
honest. Hank.
No,
It's
I
not an
didn't know
honest way
about
to
it.
interact.
I've never heard specific gravity before.
That is the way you're doing it,
Really?
though. You do it in everything. You do it you do it as an attempt to make it seem like you're going to have this ambiguous, but you're not going to be specific mockery of it. That you don't believe it really, and that it's ludicrous, but you're not actually going into detail because you don't actually have an argument. So instead, you just say specific gravity. Okay, guys, if that's what you think.
This is related to the concept of buoyancy. Icebergs float in the ocean, as in the picture, because of its specific gravity in reference to the water is less than 1.
so once you've worked out the relative gravities of different substances, you can estimate the density and the weight of the Earth.
I did a sort of jokey thing with the density equilibrium thing that some flat earthers tout. I'm not saying that you do. And part of the argument, and Chemo uses this one a lot, which is, well, obviously it's about the density and it's finding its equilibrium, and we always find that denser things are below less dense things. So I said, cool. So in that case, then let's take that hypothesis. I now no longer need a container to keep the atmosphere in Earth because gas is less dense than space.
So this specific gravity, does it have anything to do with real gravity?
Yeah.
Specifically.
So what is what does it say right here? This rising versus sinking phenomenon is the reason for the term specific gravity is applied, although gravity itself plays no significant role in this process.
The buoyant force is overcoming the downward force.
Right.
And the buoyant force can only exist in context of gravity. So I don't know why whoever wrote that is not quite right. Gravity has to exist for buoyancy to work.
It's a necessary antecedent, I believe, as Nathan would say.
Andrew Zimmerman Jones wrote that in 2018.
God damn it, Zones. Always getting things slightly wrong.
Well, let's see if I can back them up somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, also, look up buoyancy and look up gravity in relationship to buoyancy. And you'll see that you can't have buoyancy without gravity.
Can't have buoyancy without gravity, huh?
That's right. Well, you either need gravity or you need an accelerating frame to mimic gravity. One of the two.
Accelerating frame.
That's why whenever you guys say density and buoyancy, it doesn't really make sense.
Giggle.
Sorry, Scott. Go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying that's why whenever you guys say density and buoyancy, it doesn't really make sense, because when you say buoyancy, you are invoking gravity. It's right there in the equation if you look.
Yeah, there's literally a G that's gravity.
Right.
Which we've told you guys for years, but you guys just sort of ignore it.
But where you commonly come across specific gravity, at least where I did, was making beer.
Yep.
You measure your specific gravity to determine the alcohol content. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because alcohol and water have different densities. Therefore, if you have an amount of alcohol in a volume, you can have a slightly different total density to what it would be from pure water.
Right.
Lead acid battery testing as well.
Specific gravity or relative gravity is dimensionless quantity that is defined as the ratio of density of the substance of the density of water at a specific temperature and is exposed as, and then it gives an equation. So relative gravity is specific gravity.
Relative density is based on specific gravity.
Density of the object, density of the water. If it equals 1, that would be like...
Equals 1?
Yeah, that would be like the astronauts in the zero, what is it called? The pool? Yeah? I think I understand now. Neutral buoyancy lab. So their specific gravity and neutral buoyancy would be 1. Thanks for teaching me that, or pointing me in the direction. So it's relative density, basically. But you guys got to rub gravity all over everything, because pins drop when they fall off your desk.
No, what are you trying to say? How's that an argument?
It's just funny. Y'all got to rub gravitas all over everything. It's just
Rub
weight.
what?
Gravitas.
But gravity's a real thing, dude. Gravity is the name for the
I
phenomenon.
know, it means
which
weight.
things- yeah, it means
Well,
things
that's
accelerate down.
gravitas you're talking about.
Yeah, it's the etymology of the word.
Yeah, but the fact that things fall is empirically evidence for this thing being a phenomenon.
Yeah, no shit. Oh, no, not for this gravity thing.
Sure.
Because things fall doesn't mean that Einstein's theory of
I
bending
didn't say
space
Einstein's
time is
theory. I
true.
said gravity refers to this concept that there's a downward accelerating force on objects. What causes it? How you get into the internals of it? Those are open questions to say.
Okay,
But we know that
accept
something is happening. We call that thing
The
gravity.
effect is things fall down. That's not the cause. But if you want to
I
call
didn't
that
say it's
effect,
the cause. What I said
I
was
know, I'm
gravity is a
agreeing
label
with you.
that's used to
Relax.
identify. All right, so I'm just telling you that you don't need to be correcting me when I told you that the correct thing, which
I
is
wasn't
that
correcting
gravity.
you. I was
Okay,
agreeing
well,
with
the
you.
fact that things fall tells us that gravity is a real thing.
Relax, bro. I was agreeing with you. Yeah,
Well,
so things fall. That's the effect. What is the cause? Well,
we don't
if
really
things
know,
falling is gravity, then the
We don't
cause
really
and
know,
effect
to be
can't
honest.
be the same thing. Yeah, we don't
We
know.
don't have a great understanding of it. I mean, we have some ideas. Einstein has ideas. Newton has ideas. We have stuff that we do know and stuff that we don't know, and there's contradictions. And it's a current area of cutting edge science. In fact, Scientific American makes a list of like the biggest mysteries in science every year, and for like 7 years now, and gravity has been in the top 3. Like, it is definitely a hot area in which people are trying to make progress in right. But a lot we do know about it because we have so much experience with seeing it work. I mean, like, think about all the things we predict based on Newton's equations. There's so much that he got right. And all the things that Einstein predicted too.
I think also there's this idea that we can that you're putting out there that we can that any concept in reality can be explained and proven with a 4-step experiment. And reality just isn't always that simple. And I think sometimes concepts like gravity are established through, observations, experiments, through a whole series of different things that allow us to sort of chip away until we can see clearly, or have a clearer picture of it. So I don't think you can always just say, right, what's your cause and effect, what's your independent variable for any idea that's proposed.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, science is like the school thermometer, right? It's really good at a very small window, right? Seeing if kids have a temperature. But if you go home and try to put it in the oven to make cornbread, the temperature doesn't go that. You can't measure that. There's certain things that you can't measure with science. And I completely agree with you that gravity is outside of the scientific method and its philosophy.
Hold on, wait, stop. Because I didn't say that in any way. You were totally strawmanning me. I didn't say it's outside of the scientific method. I don't know where you got that from.
Didn't you just say that there's some things that you can't, independent method verify with a hypothesis test?
With a single experiment, yes, I did. And if you're trying to propose that method is science and anything else that isn't science, then you're wrong.
Okay, so why do you guys keep doing that?
So what is this observational science?
Well, look, I tell you what, because when you introduce your 6-step program there, you talked about the qualifications of the person that wrote it and said that they know what they're talking about, right?
You did.
I guess, yeah.
So let me hit you with a few other people that know what they're
Okay.
talking about.
Go ahead.
You've probably heard this before. I know other people have. From Erin Wood, Coordinator of Science Education and NASA Mission Consultant at the University of Colorado. There is no single scientific method. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Percy W. Bridgman. Science is what scientists do, and there are as many scientific methods as there are individual scientists. From The Physics Teacher, Volume 37, May 1999. Many texts teach the scientific method illustrated step by step. The idea that there is such a method or that memorizing the steps can be helpful is an anathema to practicing physicists. Ian Hacking, philosopher and historian of science at University of Toronto. Why should there be the method of science? There is not just one way to build a house or even to grow tomatoes. We should not expect something as motley as the growth of knowledge to be strapped to one methodology. Nearly there. From the American Association for the Advancement of Science. There simply is no fixed set of steps that scientists always follow. No one path that leads them unerringly to scientific knowledge. There are, however, certain features of science that give it a distinctive character as a mode of inquiry. William F. McComas, professor in science education at the University of Arkansas. The notion that a common series of steps is followed by all research scientists must be among the most pervasive myths of science, given the appearance of such a list in the introductory chapters of many pre-college science texts. So I say there is no single scientific method.
Can you post those so I can see the sources?
Sure.
Please.
And you know what's interesting about that too is that it doesn't really contradict the ones that you find, right? Because it says those are fine. Someone might have a particular set of steps, and that's cool. There's as many as there are scientists. So that's not surprising. And also, it's very reasonable. Common sense just exudes from those things. Of course, that all makes sense. It's so much more normal to imagine that people get to truth in a variety of ways.
A good example is zoology, right? Or cosmology.
You can look at zoology, you can look at medicine. Medicine is actually probably the biggest one that sits outside that because an awful lot of the studies that are done are statistical.
I can think of two, just even being at home. Me working on the car, doing analysis of something that's wrong with it, or cooking in the kitchen.
So I got a question. Why do certain people go to these universities and get degrees in science if you could just make up your own scientific method and go about the world?
Because they're not just being
asking
taught the scientific
questions.
method at university, Hank. That's the whole problem. You've got this myopic view, or there seems to be this myopic view of what people learn at university. You know, it's not what you think it is.
Like zoology, right? They just observe and study animal behavior, for example. You're not going through my variable, my independent variable, my hypothesis. No, depending on the exact nature of the research, you're observing, say, a particular species of birds' migration patterns, for example, right?
And I think there are still rules to this. I think you need to have a falsifiable hypothesis.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, it's not science.
You know,
You
it's like
don't have that. Sorry, go ahead.
It's like the quote. It's like the quote you read, Jim, about there's more than one way to build a house. Okay, that's true. That doesn't mean that what Hank just said. It doesn't mean you can build a house any way you want. You don't have to, do anything you want and it'll build a house. That's not the case. But there is more than one way to do it. Same thing with science. There's more than one way to do it. That doesn't mean you can just do anything you want willy nilly. It means you still got to get there somehow, and that's going to involve certain constraints. But it doesn't have to be the exact same set of rules every time.
Okay, so here's a quote, and I'm curious what you guys think. Science is what scientists do. Well, that's true. That's kind of like saying cats are felines. That's just a true statement. So, comma, and there are as many different scientific methods as there are individual scientists. Well, what if one scientist teaches his student his scientific method and that's what the student uses his whole life? Well, wouldn't that be two different people with the same scientific method?
Because you're not just going to university to learn one thing. Generally, let's take physics, nice hard science.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you go to university, you're gonna do your undergrad in physics, and you're going to be looking at the history of physics. You're going to look at what are the current views of physics, how have we come to those point of views, what's the substantiation for it. Now you want to move to your doctorate. Yeah, and now your doctorate is going to say, okay, how are you going to advance it? Well, I'm going to take a particular topic and I'm going to see if I can advance that topic forward, because that is what I need to do in my PhD to get my doctorate. And I have to put down not only what my idea is and how I've come to the conclusions, but all the method that goes behind it. And then that method is going to be critiqued. And they go, well, why did you do that? Well, because of this. Well, that's pretty cool. Okay, I accept that. And we move on. So we're going through and we're validating the method used to reach the conclusion. And then if it's an experimental, we might then repeat that experiment using that methodology to see if the results we get out are consistent.
Okay, so if there are many, by the way, what you said didn't have anything to do with the question I asked. If there are many different scientists as there are scientific methods, then how come only certain things make it into the science journals and other things are classified as pseudoscience? Wouldn't that just be their own method?
No, it didn't say that anything can count. It didn't say that. What it says is that there's going to be uniqueness that every scientist brings to their particular method. But it's like saying every gait that we have as humans, every gait is different. But that doesn't mean that, when you crawl that you're running. It doesn't equate everything. And this weird thing you do is you take a sentence like that and you try to make it as extreme as possible, and then you break it and you take away its meaning, because that's not the meaning. And so, for example, we know what pseudoscience is. Pseudoscience is when you have something that can't be falsified.
Okay, let me phrase it this way for you. Every kid is a scientist, right? Because they're doing a series of tests. What happens if I throw my bottle down 50 times? How many times will it take for mommy doesn't?
Only with
Let me finish, bro. Let me finish, bro. Are you afraid?
But I'm answering your question.
It's not a question. I'm making a statement.
You said a question for him, but okay, go ahead.
Okay,
I want to answer his question from before.
There are so many different scientists in the world, like 7 billion of them, because we all go through a series of tests. And according to this, scientists, what scientists do, like throwing your bottle down to see how many times before
you're stretching the word.
What?
You're stretching the word to absurdity. That's not what the words mean.
No, yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Okay, so our kids not scientists.
A scientist will have been through a very rigorous and specified structure of education. So you then cannot say everybody is a scientist.
Why would
look,
if
you
you're in
can
the
sometimes.
scientific method
Said
and you
it
can make
earlier.
up your own scientific method, have your own individual scientific
Said
method.
it earlier.
As long as that method concludes with a testable conclusion, right, or something that you can
Falsifiable
test.
conclusion.
Yeah, a
Science.
falsifiable conclusion. That's
Right.
that's what's required.
Science is what scientists do, not scientists are what science is.
But anyone can be a scientist, but that doesn't mean they always are. So, for example, you can be a citizen scientist. You can do a scientific experiment. That doesn't mean that you're a scientist always. It means in a moment when you were doing science, you were acting as a scientist.
And then what we're going to do is look at the method you use to reach your conclusions. And we're going to see if that can be repeated, and we're going to see if the methodology is reasonable.
And the
it's not really
saving
a binary classification either. It's not like you have to meet a criteria now suddenly you're a scientist. It's more like there's gradations. You know, you could be a serious scientist where you're really actually making progress and doing it rigorously, or you could sort of just kind of be a scientist because you casually sort of did a little bit of a scientific approach to something. You know what I mean? The words are very malleable in that sense.
Let me get in here because I agree with both sides here. So number one, Jem and Scott are absolutely right. There is no scientific method as described, a step-by-step order. What it is a method and practice that someone else would use to copy your scientific method to hopefully get a repeatable result, repeatable, observable, and measurable. Now, added to that, Hank's idea of science is more robust and drives people all towards one direction. Empirical understanding of the nature of reality through cause and effect. So you're both right, but for different reasons.
I could accept that. So I got this thing here about children being scientists, right? So I'll go ahead and share that with you guys. I've been over this with you guys before. Yeah, babies are born scientists, right?
Yeah. Okay. But you know what they mean by that, right?
Yeah, they do a series of tests.
Yeah. Okay. So you know that when they say it like that, they're not saying for the Nobel Prize. They're not saying they're members of a.
They're born scientists.
They're saying that they behave in scientific-like ways.
Humans are scientists by heart.
Hey, Whammer, I don't need you to interrupt me, okay?
No, I'm just saying, by their very nature, humans are scientists.
Yeah, I'm just interrupting. I'm just saying, I'm interrupting.
But yes, Whammer, you're right. That's the point. But that's different than you can use the word scientist and you can put a formality on it. You can use it casually. You can use it broadly. You can use it narrowly. I mean, it's all about the context here. That's how English works, and you know this, Hank.
So we could just do it broadly, like, why are boobs good? That's like good science, right?
Well, that's not really science. That's a subjective question.
Well, aren't they?
In the same way, we could say all babies are builders.
Yes, all babies are builders. Exactly. That's a great one. Every single baby is an architect. But, it means something specifically different there than it does when I say my friend is an architect. What?
Right. You have to cite your source on that one. All babies are architects.
Well, have you not seen the fact that babies all build with blocks?
To an architect.
I mean, isn't that sure? They're more simple. They're more simple, but so are the scientific experiments they do are more simple. They're architects, dude. So do you see the point, though? It stretches the word to get an idea of the fact that they behave in ways that are similar, but it's not saying they're identical. They're not saying there's an identity between adult scientists and babies.
Pretty sure a baby can, probably does the scientific method as well.
Maybe I don't. Who knows? I doubt it, to be honest with you. They do something very scientific.
Yeah.
Scott, sorry, I don't like how Scott answered that. He doesn't understand. All they do is they observe, they follow, they repeat.
Okay.
All right, but think about that. You put that into a scientific method, which is just you make an observation, you think about how it went together, and then you try and do it. That's it.
Yeah, I can't find anything on babies or architects.
I just explained it to you though.
What, you never played with Lego?
It's like
This is
most
just
of
ridiculous,
what happens
guys. We're
Lego?
adults here. We're talking
then
about the
you
most rudimentary bullshit.
Technically,
Well, hold on.
architects draw, not build.
Fuck,
Well,
even
whatever,
I
they
understand
design-
it. That's how I know.
You have to have a design in your head in order to build something, and so they have a design. They take their blocks, they build it. It's rudimentary. It's not quite as
No, they have
sophisticated
no
as
idea
real.
what the outcome's going
Hold
to be.
on, hey Hank, hold on. Let me finish.
Sorry,
before
you're
you
right.
interrupt again.
Sorry.
So it's rudimentary. It's not as sophisticated as real architects, but that's also true when you say they're scientists. It's rudimentary science they're doing. It's not as sophisticated as real scientists. The point is that when you say that about a baby, you're not really trying to set up an identity between the two words. You're sort of saying they behave in ways that are similar to these things. And that's true for the science, it's true for builders, that's true for architects, it's true for you name it. They're also entertainers, by the way. They're great entertainers.
Painters.
Yeah, painters.
I'm just on page 3 and I
Dancers,
don't see any
runners.
You don't need sources for this. Just use your head.
Athletes, climbers. My granddaughter's a great climber.
Yeah, right. Extreme sports enthusiasts.
Yeah.
But do you see the point we're trying to make, Hank?
Well, no, I don't. I'm going to dismiss it because you didn't cite your source.
There is no source for this. We're telling you with using common sense and logic.
Have children, Hank.
Just the English language.
Of course,
Is that something you're not capable of engaging with in an honest way, Hank?
So, Hank, how many of your kids played with things like Legos or blocks?
Yeah, my kids played with Legos or blocks, but I wouldn't
Did they build something with it?
They didn't design like a functional bridge.
Okay. Show me a child. Show me a child under the age of 7 that has advanced the topic of quantum physics.
Actually, I think there was a little boy who came up with a theory.
Anyway, but Hank, you're not being honest right now. Like you're literally not listening to what we're saying because.
Well, hey man,
you
I
want
cited a source and backed up my claim. Could you do the same?
But
so
you
we
know
can
that's
be on the same page?
that's not a criteria with which to dismiss what we're saying.
Okay, so you came
What,
up with
what you're
this idea
saying is
here's
you
the
only
architects.
believe things to be true if you can find a sentence that agrees with an idea on the internet. I know that's quantum erasers training, but it's absurd, mate.
And it was only a news item. You're only citing. You're only
I
Hank. You're only citing a news item, not some kind of reference source or research source.
Right. It's just I found those words in some sentence somewhere on the internet. Therefore, I'm right.
There you go, Hank. What is a little architect?
This was a
This
doc
is
of
architecture for children because all children should be architects.
There you
go.
This is not NSF.gov. Like this is government.
Oh,
Don't you guys-
Hank,
organization. Really
What
high
about the one that Foolish just posted, Hank? What's wrong with that? What is a little architect?
Okay, let me look.
But Hank, is this really the path that you want to take? Hank? Is this how you think is a good use of our time for you to quibble about? I mean, it just seems so dumb.
I know it is ridiculous. It is. It's like you don't really understand your native language and its nuances. You know.
Yeah, the closest we've got to a flat Earth thing is this ether claim, and that's not indicative of a flat
What does
Earth
that
at
have to do
all.
with the shape of the Earth?
I'm just saying. I mean, it's like there's the closest thing you've got to outside of the globe model or anything. I mean, like, what do you really think makes the Earth flat in your mind? Can we get down to that?
My eyes send
I don't
signals
know,
to my
water.
brain, and the vestibular organ in my ear sends signal to my brain telling me that it's stationary, flat. So what in your brain makes you think that you're moving?
Evidence.
The fact that.
Can you
Hang
show
on,
me?
I've got
Can you,
one.
like, take me out to like a place where we can see this evidence?
Hank,
sure.
yeah, Hank. There are certain
okay.
stars that were up in the sky when I was born that are no longer there.
Really, what stars are they?
Oh, what? You want me to name the fuckers? No, they're just not there anymore.
Well,
I don't know their names.
Where'd they go, bro?
Where'd they go?
They're gone.
Do the vestibular cavities have limitations?
Yeah, it does, but it's pretty good at telling you if you're moving.
Are they
It's
infinitely
not.
good? Can they
It's
can they detect infinitely small movements?
So stars
No,
are
but,
gone, therefore
can they-
Earth is a globe.
can they detect like astronomical huge movements, like
That
elliptical
wasn't the
orbits?
question I asked, though, was it?
I didn't say that it was, did I?
Can they detect very small motion?
And I answered and said
You
no.
answered with a question. You didn't answer with an answer.
I answered with a no, and then I asked a question of my own. I thought it was my turn in the conversation. Forgive me.
Your no got swallowed, Hank.
So, did you answer my question?
The answer is no to yours also.
Oh, so they can't detect acceleration.
No, you didn't say acceleration. You said motion.
Yeah, elliptical orbits. I'm talking about acceleration.
You didn't say acceleration. You said motion.
Okay, well,
You say
maybe you
orbit.
didn't hear me because he was talking over me, but I'll ask it
All right,
again.
dude.
Can the ears detect elliptical orbits?
That's
And
not
I would
what you
say
said.
Motion, which is motion.
no.
Yes.
Elliptical orbit.
It depends on
means
what that orbit is.
that there has to be acceleration.
Yeah.
As
It
the turn
depends on the
tightens.
magnitude of that acceleration, doesn't it?
Look, bro, I drive for a living, and I know for a fact that as the turn tightens, you're going to have acceleration.
Sure.
That's because the force is applied externally. The elliptical orbit will result from a gravitational field which results on every particle of the mass simultaneously. Therefore, there is no feeling of acceleration.
So you're saying that we can't feel outside sources because if we're under gravity, then outside sources don't affect us?
It's because of the weight of acceleration.
The way you're interpreting things was correct. You would not be floating in orbit. You would not be in free fall in orbit.
If the way you understand it was correct, then a ton object would weigh the same at the North Pole as it does at the equator. How about that?
Done that.
So because there's centrifugal force, because the Earth is spinning, it cross-cancels the gravity a little bit. And it's said that a ton doesn't weigh a ton at the equator the same amount as a ton weighs.
All I was doing
could
it be?
I was pointing out the fact that the way a car corners on a track is not the same as the way something in orbit transfers an elliptical orbit.
Well, you
Right,
just
now
said
I can
because the
I have a go?
Yeah,
right?
go ahead.
Yeah,
could it be that your ears can't detect that movement because the accelerations are too small?
I'd say that's a pretty big acceleration.
The problem is, Hank to answer that?
Yeah, let him answer, please.
I would say it's a pretty big acceleration if you're spinning and going around a circuit, around an object, and that circuit were to change trajectory as the spin goes around the outside and you really feel the most amount of centrifugal force, then it would cross-cancel the gravity just a little bit more. And you're insinuating that gravity can't be cross-canceled because there's a gravitational field and you wouldn't feel any of that.
What I'm insinuating is that the acceleration involved in the orbit of the Earth around the Sun is very, very small. And for that reason, you can't detect it.
So like it's moving, but you can't tell. All this movement, no one can tell.
I mean, there's plenty of things that we
can
get on that
tell.
move that we can't tell they're moving, Brett.
Hold on real fast. I can tell, right? Because I can perceive the Earth not moving, right? So your claim is that it is moving, but you can't tell. Which one, with Occam's razor, hold on, with Occam's razor, which one requires less assumptions?
Well, the simple test of that is we put you in a room and we block 1 second.
You have two sensible conjectures to start with. Your conjectures are not sensible.
Well, also it deals with the same conjecture. Yours is not
Actually,
the same
they're
conjecture.
by
Occam's razor
definition
doesn't apply at all.
sensible because I'm getting it from my senses. Yours are not sensible because you can't detect them with your senses.
You propose that the non-sensing of something is some kind of adequate proposal of something. No, you have just stated that something can't detect something. Whoopee-doo.
So look, both of the claims. Your claim that you don't feel anything, so you think maybe it's not moving. That's fine. It's also true that it can be moving slow enough that we don't feel it. That's also true. So now we have to figure out, well, which of the two is it? And we can use other ways to do that.
Well, I want to know what he means by sensible. What do you mean by sensible?
For example, Foucault's pendulum. Stop gravitating towards the fight.
The fight?
Yeah, you got to help elevate the conversation. If you keep going down to the lowest common denominator, like i.e., you hear somebody maybe wants to pick a fight, you go for it. It always degenerates to fighting.
So someone's actually put the amount of centrifugal force. In fact, two people have, Rocket and Nick, have put the amount of centrifugal force that is actually generated due to the orbit around the sun.
Yeah, so all this movement, it's undetectable.
What's the tiny
What I'm saying is, can
Zero.
you see the amount of effect there, Crit?
It's not that
do you
it's
think
undetectable,
that is
it's
an amount of acceleration that you could sense with your God-given senses, or however
Yeah,
else you want to put it?
It's not that it's not that it's undetectable. It's undetectable by your equipment in your ears. Using other more sensitive equipment that we can build, we can detect it.
Like what?
Sensitive accelerometers.
So if I get a sensitive accelerometer, I'm going to feel the Earth moving with this.
You can detect. You can detect it moving. Yes.
Hook it up to electrodes, and every time it detects movement, it will zap you. Then you'll feel it.
Yeah, and then
we call it the testes tester.
If it's moving, then at all,
You'll be getting
right,
zapped.
Then it
If
absolutely.
you're moving, then what, Hank?
Then it absolutely has to be the entire Earth moving around the orbit.
Yeah.
Right. Just like when you detect the two black holes colliding, the little blip on the little radar at the LiDAR thing, it has to be two black holes. Couldn't be no other explanation.
So
right?
Hank, the
So can you give me
problem
another
is that
reason? Can you give me another
do
way to
realize
detect?
with LiDAR, you do realize with LiDAR and VIDAR, we don't just get, there's been a little ripple in the gravity waves come through. We get more than that. We know where it's come from. We get a direction to it.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know that?
So you triangulated it with two places?
Yes.
Doesn't triangulation infer that there would have to be three?
No, something else you don't know, Hank.
Observer A, observer B, two angles. Then we use
That would be
trigonometry.
biangulation, right?
You can draw the
No,
last
that's
one
triangulation
because
the
it's
third point is the
creating the 2
unknown.
points. Fucking
Oh,
hell.
for fuck's sake. Sorry,
I'm
Hank.
out of this conversation. This
Yeah.
is just
Really,
too
Hank,
much.
You're so embarrassing sometimes, Hank.
Yeah, I mean, like his argument is like, my eyes can't detect X-rays, so therefore X-rays don't exist. Wow.
I can't see or touch radio waves. They can't exist.
What he was saying was just fine.
You guys got any more straw man?
That's completely silly.
Well, again, I mean, Hank, we can't see, taste, touch, or feel ether, but you want to postulate that it's
Okay,
there.
well, here's Merriam-Webster. The measurement or elements necessary to determine a network of triangles into which part of the Earth's surface is divided in surveying.
Yeah.
So
Now that's surveying. Now look up triangulation to measure a distance or direction to an object. And what you'll find is you need 2 points, a point A and a point B. And then you receive information from point C, which is your unknown. And from that information, then we can start to work out the distance and direction to that object. That is triangulation.
All right, I'll look for it.
2 known points, 1 unknown. So we have enough information to solve the equation. In fact, you don't even technically need 2 points to do a triangulation. You can have one person and then they individually can move to another point, and then they can still get a directional find to that object. And if we're using radio, we can also measure the radio strength of that signal to say whether we're getting closer or further away from it. So then that way we don't even need triangulation.
Whoa, yes, you could do that, Foolish, but it's not reliable.
It's not. That's why I
It's not.
prefer 2 points, because it's much more accurate and I can get it down to, a pretty small amount of space if we're talking a couple of miles, or a little more if we're talking sort of stellar distances. And if it wasn't for triangulation, we couldn't have built the pyramids.
You know, honestly, this triangulation in psychology is pretty interesting. It's a dirty tactic.
Wait a sec. Scott, are you doing a German slap dance?
Yes. Do you like it?
Can you turn the music on? Oh, you can't put music on here.
It's like you're eating your keyboard on my Skype.
And it's got one of those newfangled mouse with the microphone built in.
How's my mic sounding today?
Quiet.
Nope, sounds
No,
like
that's
you.
good. It's better than before. It's not overdriven.
Yeah, I had to switch out the headset because the puppy chewed through the old one.
Oh, you must have been very loud because I had you down at 77% before crit. So that probably means, yeah, you were definitely overdriving your mic.
Yeah, I mean,
it was unbearable before. Can we get back to learning from Hank?
Yeah,
He used to run out of learn.
He just said he'd be right back.
I was actually looking at the different definitions of triangulation. There's a bunch of different meanings for this.
How about
So,
that?
It's a bunch.
So pick one and force that into every situation then. Is that the wise thing to do?
Triangulation, the narcissist's best play. I bet you've used this one before. What do you think?
I think that you're a fool.
Oh, is that what you think? What's a fool?
Well,
What
it's
do you mean
what
by
I
fool?
know. But
What do you mean
anyway,
by
go
fool?
ahead.
What do you mean
Keep
by fool?
learning us, Hank. Keep learning us.
What do you mean by fool? Shall I look it up for you?
Hank, please, can you just focus on not the fight?
Okay, yeah, I do ride a motorcycle without wearing a helmet, so you are correct. I am a fool.
You know what? You know what the ego is, right? Hank. You know what ego-driven behaviors are like, right?
What do you mean by ego? Are you talking about the Freudian ego or the more
Yes.
Eastern?
I'm talking about the Freudian ego, the ego
Everyone
versus
has
the
an
id.
ego. Yeah.
Yes, we all have egos. So the problem is the room is full of ego-driven behaviors, and we have to actively fight it. So I get that when your hubris is pricked or when you feel insulted, I get that you have this instinctive urge to want to defend and fight. But I'm just begging you to rise above it.
I mean, have I really been rude to anyone tonight? I mean,
It's
I
not
haven't
that you're
cursed.
rude. It's that all you want to do is further and engage. Anytime you hear anything that might be a snark, you zero in on it, and that's what we're going to listen to for the next 10 minutes of you snarking with somebody over something.
Oh, come on, man. I'm not that bad.
That slight snicker gave you away.
Did I snicker? I didn't hear a snicker. But you may be right. Maybe I am a little bit competitive. You have to understand it was how I was raised.
Yeah, but don't compete to be the stupidest one in the room.
Is that what I'm doing?
Actually, give fair props. At least Hank actually fucking answers questions. Give him props for that. We may disagree with his answers. We may feel that some of them are silly, but he does fucking address the point.
Yeah, I'm about to say the exact same thing. Like, you guys get flat earthers in here, and it's always exactly the same claim. They're being stupid. The stupidest person in the room. It's like even if they get different answers or different ideas, like those dolls you get in the toy store where you pull the string, and it says like, "Hey, mommy, I want a bottle." It's like debating that. It's like you say something that you think is enlightening or challenging to the paradigm, and it just pull the string, regurgitate nonsense back at you.
You know,
It
I
gets
think
tedious, right?
I think he's right. This definition seems to fit it the best. To spend time in an aimless way. That's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm just fooling around with you guys, wasting time.
Well, that's what it
You
does.
nailed it, Curve. You're right.
Seems like you're fooling around because to intentionally, misinterpret words or like have to twist definitions around to like win points in an argument. That's what I mean by being stupid. You know what I mean? Like, obviously you know better, right? You wouldn't know well enough to twist the words so consistently if you didn't know what they meant in the first place. So like, just don't do that.